Um, Do you all remember the Baptist preacher that burned the Qurans? You remember him? Westboro something, Baptist preacher. That's him right there. That's him. And, you know, I'm just not there yet. I'm just trying to figure all this out. You see, his new attack, did you hear his new one? Yeah, his new attack is on Taylor Swift. No, this is part of my message. Seldom do I deal with current affairs, but this one just dovetails right into what I'm doing. Who knew? Now, this is what strikes me as terrifying. If I was out there in the world watching all this unfold and I wasn't a believer, you couldn't get me in the church. After seeing this, I'd say, keep your church, keep your religion, leave me alone. So here's this fellow right here. No, wait, I'll say, when I'm done, I know you're going to want to applaud when I'm done. He and his son, and I don't even know their names, so we'll just call them this stick figure here, are basically saying, and this is in the media, that Taylor Swift, as you know, is probably I don't listen to her music, frankly. It all sounds the same. When you put pop music on it, it all sounds the same to me. You could play 20 different artists, it all sounds the same. But listen, you know, she's doing what people in that field, they dream of doing, fame and fortune and selling records and whatever. So good for her. But having said that, the attack is that, this new attack is that the senior pastor of this church said he actually called her a whore publicly and said that this is because she has a string of boyfriends and she is just on and on, fornicator and just, now, first of all, last time I checked, Taylor Swift is not going around preaching evangelism. She's doing music. She's singing and living her dream. And I'm not saying whether or not I like her music or whether or not it represents anything that I believe. We're not talking about that. And she has a right to a personal life. But here's where things get a little precarious for me. So this is what the world looking on says, this thing right here, this monster, this is supposedly the church representing Jesus Christ. And this statement is made that she is a fornicator and she's had this successive string of boyfriends and on and on and on. And immediately, the first thing that came to my mind is a passage I've referenced for the last 2 or 3 weeks. The woman at the well. You think Jesus went up to the woman and said, "You're a whore"? Now, I only know one Taylor Swift song. I think it's called I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In. So, you know, I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking, you know, when a young man named Elvis Presley came on the stage, people were saying things about him. You know, his music was of the devil, and now you listen to Elvis music, and that's very, very tame. In some cases, very lame, but back there, people were screaming and shouting and pandemonium over this gyrating hip movement that now is kind of like Sister Act 3 compared to what goes on in some of the forums you see now with all the gyrating of places that no one ever knew gyrated. Now, my point is, now I want you to get the picture. This man here, and Taylor Swift, they are in a boat together. Something like that. And they both happen to fall overboard. I am Mr. Morality. Now, let me just say one thing. I learned this from Dr. Scott. If you own a soapbox, dismantle it. Chances are, the higher you climb, the harder you will fall. And so here we have both of these. They both fall in the water. Mr. Morality, who's busy berating Miss World or whatever she's doing in her life. And here comes the rope, beautiful rope that's tossed in. Here's Taylor, and here's Mr. WBP. And only one rope can save them, both of them. This is what is heart-wrenching to me. Because when I look at what's going on, I think, there's a lesson to be learned in all this. How many whores in the Bible? How many harlots in the Bible? How many murderers? How many adulterers? How many? And yet, all of these were saved by the same method. From the whore, from the harlot, Rahab, hang the cord out your window, to the one that Jesus met at the well. This one concept. It's not how moral you are, how pure you are, how holy you are, how much scripture you know, how much you go to church, how many hymns you can sing, how many dogs you didn't kick, or chickens, or whatever, or how many whatevers, and how many this and that and the other thing, and who knows? And this is where I think to myself, the world looking in is looking at this and thinking, and this is Christianity? Christianity never has a balance to weigh the sin. Now, earlier in the week, I was traveling and had, I think it's the privilege, I'm not quite sure yet, to listen to another talk radio show. You know who Dennis Miller is? Yeah, Dennis Miller had his radio talk show, and he had people calling in, and they were talking about good and evil. And all of this kind of ties together, because I'm thinking to myself, as I'm listening to people discuss, every single person missed the concept. It seems like pastors that called in that didn't even give any scriptural reference, lay people or people who weren't of the Christian faith who actually gave some better answers, but nobody seems to get this. You cannot take, if we're going to start weighing out who deserves and who does not, we don't have Christianity anymore. We don't have a dispensation or a covenant of grace. We're just back at the law. And then the world looking on sees this and says, yes, this is what the church must look like. Either I don't want it, or this is what I identify with, which becomes a whole set of rules to live by. Now, I ask you a question. By the very nature, he has no clue of her personal life, by the very nature of calling her a whore, and I pray that she has really good attorneys, and she just goes for the jugular on this one. Yes. But you might say, well, wait a minute, but that's not Christian. Well, neither is this. Neither is this. Now, what a dovetail into my topic today.